Have you ever sat there and thought to yourself, what if I don't want to kill Flood anymore? Maybe I want to be an activist for Flood rights. Well, today we're gonna find out, can you beat Halo 1, 2, and 3 without killing any Flood? For this challenge, I decided to play on normal difficulty. Easy mode is for pussies, and hard mode would mean I take more damage, which would make the challenge longer than it needs to be. 343 Guilty Spark is our first encounter with the Flood. We get sent here because the Covenant just opened a new petting zoo, but all the blood was creating a slipping hazard, so I had to shut them down. But I soon realized that having a zoo made up of zombie parasites is a bad idea. To get out of this room, the infection forms have to die by any means. Luckily, when they hurt me, they kill themselves, and this doesn't count as killing Flood because I'm not attacking them in any way. I'm the one being attacked, and this results in them killing themselves. Eventually, their numbers dropped low enough, and they break open the exit door. The Flood is 10 times scarier when you can't kill them, so I was trying desperately to leave. After 10 minutes of getting lost and avoiding the Flood's neck-breaking high fives, I found the elevator and wrote it down. I started to panic when I saw the blood on the walls, but was instantly relieved when I saw it was grunt blood. The Flood don't use grunts for combat forms, so I knew that I was descending into safety. I grabbed the overshield and invisibility because I was gonna need all the protection I could get. When I found the second elevator, I rode it up and met my comrades. I wished them good luck and abandoned them all. Then I headed straight for the end of the level. I found a nice quiet spot and waited for some sentinels to die, because when they die, it activates the end of the level. Then I meet the asshole who takes Johnson away from us, and I beat the level. A lot of this level is running through repetitive hallways and hoping the rocket flood don't shoot you. At the beginning of the level, you have to wait for the monitor to open this giant door, and while you're waiting, the flood attacks you. I tried waiting a few times, but it was damn near impossible. The flood would kill me as soon as I made it there. I decided to stand at the entrance to the room and shoot the walls. This would get the attention of most of the flood forms because they knew a firm piece of Spartan ass was ringing the dinner bell. I would draw them out to the big room where the index was and jump across the gaps. When they made it around the room, I would go back and activate the loading point. After hiding in the corner, the door opened and I made it through. At this point, I pulled out my rosary and started praying to RN Jesus so he would have mercy on me. The first floor wasn't too bad. I just hauled fucking ass and jumped on the elevator faster than a father abandoning his pregnant girlfriend. Any seasoned Halo player knows that at the second door, you can wait in this spot for the door to open and the flood won't spawn. When the second door opened, I tried running past everything, but I quickly doubled the circumference of my butthole. The second time, I jumped over the pillars that were hugging the edge of the cliff. These small hallways were always filled with flood. If there were carrier forms inside, I could just make them explode. To get by the combat forms, it took a little more effort. I would have to shoot to draw them out, and then the sentinels could kill them. On the third floor, I had to wait for another door to open. I just stayed to the side so I wouldn't get unnecessary attention, and then I became a shepherd and herded the flood. I ran past everything until I hit another door. I had to hide in the corner like a pussy since I couldn't defend myself. When the door opened, all hell broke loose, so I ran for it. I hit the fourth floor and had to wait for another door to open, which was actually the easiest door so far. The last part of the mission was hell. To get through alive, you had to be a literal god, which I almost was, but my luck ran out at the last second. After 10 minutes of this, I took the long way around and finally got the index. The first bit of the mission just has Covenant and Sentinels, so I'm just gonna skip the beginning here. After killing some Covenant, you can hear some noise in the next room. You may think the Covenant are throwing a rave, and it's the perfect time to go in and slaughter them, but wait, it's a battle between Covenant and Flood. I waited until the fighting stopped, and then I went in. I ran by the Covenant in the next room and got to the bridge where Covenant and Flood are fighting each other. It's pretty easy to just run past them all. In the next room, the Flood are guarding the exit pretty heavily, so I shot in the middle of the room to get their attention, and then I went around them. The next section is hard because there's a lot of Rocket Flood. There's no strategy here, just luck, so jump over him and pray to RN Jesus. The next part is one of the hardest parts of the entire challenge. It's another bridge, but it's filled with Flood, and 3 of them are Rocket Flood. And on top of that, there's a Banshee flying overhead. You just have to wait for the Flood to take it out, because if you don't, it targets you and drains your shields really fast, and then the Flood will finish you off. After 25 minutes, I finally got a run where the Banshee was dead, the Rocket Flood didn't kill me, and for good measure, I threw a nade to distract the Flood. I wasn't sure if it helped, but it couldn't hurt to try. The next 2 sections have Flood, but it's pretty simple and safe to run by them all and avoid taking damage. Once we get outside, it's nothing but Covenant until the second generator. Once I reached the room, I thought it would be a nightmare because when you step in, your shields go down and there's sentinels and Flood all around you and they kill you really fast. Then some more come in through the door. I found it was best to jump through this window, which gives you time for your shields to charge and for the Flood to clear out of the exit. I got out and made my way to the underground bridge. Running across right away is suicide, so I had to lure them off the bridge by shooting, and from there I just dodged and weaved until I opened the door and got outside. The rest of the level is easy. The Flood and Covenant are fighting, so it's just slip by, grab a Banshee, and finish the level. Keys was honestly the hardest level of the run. I spent more time on it than any other mission. It took me 2 hours to come up with a strategy to get past each section. To start the level off, I avoid everything until I fall in the water. From here until the ship is chaos, so I run by all the Flood and Covenant, grabbing an overshield for that extra protection. I get into the ship and there's a section where Flood and Covenant are fighting and you just have to wait it out, and then kill the remaining Covenant, which is pretty easy because a grunt always drops a nade and kills everyone. In these crowded hallways, it's mainly luck. Use the carrier forms to kill as many Flood as possible, and then slip by the rest of them. If you move through this part fast enough, and the carrier forms kill the Flood, the key scene can activate even with Flood in the room. I take a Banshee and leave the ship. The last level of Halo CE. It's been super rough so far, and we're only on the 4th mission of 13. To start off, I wait until the Flood and Sentinels all die. This hallway is tricky, so I have to lure them out by shooting. Then when I have enough time, I can slip through alive. In the cafeteria, I just run by everyone and kill all the Covenant in the bridge. The next section is full of Flood, and there's no way I'm getting through unharmed, so I have to lure every Flood form into the bridge and let the Sentinels kill them all. This next part is the hallway where Flood spawn infinitely, so I go through there as fast as I can and grab an overshield for maximum protection. I ignore everyone in this hallway and go straight for the armory to grab a rocket launcher so I can blow up the engines. I had to be careful that no Flood were around the engines when I blew them up, just in case they got caught in the blast radius. I blew up the engines, said hi to Zukazamami, and rode the elevator up. I had to be super cautious on the Warthog run. I couldn't run over a single infection form, so I would usually have to hang back and wait for the Flood forms to clear out. It took a few tries, but eventually I made it to the end. I left my Warthog early to avoid killing any Flood forms, and somehow slipped by without getting jacked up. I hopped on the longsword and left Installation 4. My first encounter with the Flood was just the infection forms, so I let my elites take them out while I stood there and watched my allies die. I could have helped, but that wasn't in my job description. When we got on the elevator, I took out the Sentinels while my elites killed the Flood. I don't know if it was glitched, or if there's just not as much Flood on normal mode as there is on heroic, but pretty much no Flood spawned for the whole elevator ride. Also, at one point, the sentinels got stuck under the elevator, so I think it's safe to say that the level was glitched. I had to keep my men alive to deal with the flood because I was as useful as unsliced bread. But in Halo 2, the combat forms are much more aggressive and my men kept dying. On top of that, the carrier forms aren't as good in Halo 2 as they are in Halo CE for killing Flood. After many deaths, I went back to the elevator because I thought maybe it'd do something, and to my surprise, when I came back, the exit was unlocked. Once all the heretics died, the outer door opened and I slipped past the Flood. I killed the heretics who got in my way and confronted the heretic leader. For the rest of the mission, I did the elevator invincibility glitch, so avoiding the Flood was really easy. I killed the heretic, and the mission was over. Sacred Icon goes something like this. Step 1, open a piston. Step 2, fall into hole. Step 3, run by Flood and sentinels who are trying to kill you. Step 4, now do it over and over again for about 10 minutes. The only important part of this mission is the end because all the Flood have to die for the level to end. Of course, I couldn't do that, so I just hid up here and let Halfjaw kill them all. But I had to destroy the turrets because he couldn't kill the Flood when they were within kissing distance of him. To start off, I took a ghost because when your allies and vehicles kill enemies, the score goes towards your own kill count, which is bullshit. Then I took a warthog because warthogs are much more fun to drive than ghosts are. The first half of the mission is driving around, so I completely avoided combat with everything because every vehicle is being piloted by a Flood combat form, and so I can't fight back. I thought I was fucked on the gondola part, so I panicked and was looking for a safe spot. I tried jumping here, but there was an invisible barrier. Then I noticed a high ledge. My legs were too goddamn stubby, so I had to do a grenade jump to get up. After chilling here for a minute, I noticed that there was a ramp that led all the way to the top of the gondola, so I hid up here until the ride ended, and then I ran to the end of the level. This level is really cool, but it's also super short. I beat this mission in only 6 minutes, so there isn't much to be said. I killed the Covenant troops even though I didn't have to, because I enjoy watching the life drain from their bodies. As for the Flood, I just ran by them all. The Covenant was doing a good job of distracting the Flood, so this mission was way too easy. I jumped into the transportation beam, and then I got on the Covenant ship. Killing no Flood in Halo 2 was ridiculously easy. The Covenant have invaded Earth, and now we have to take them out. A lot of this mission involves me hiding either far away or at a high place and watching the Arbiter kill the Flood. Since I couldn't help Arby, I tried to make a barricade, but it only delayed their onslaught by half a second. Arby's AI is kinda wonky, so I had to restart checkpoints a lot. As the mission progressed, I lost more and more faith in the Arbiter. This game of hide and seek that the Arbiter was playing was going on for a few minutes, so eventually I had to intervene. I hid in this room while Arby cleared out the Flood, and thankfully I had a deployable cover so I could watch from safety. I was gonna let this crazy guy live, but he killed his comrades even though they weren't infected, so I introduced him to my good pal 8-Gauge. This hallway and the rest of the mission can be super dangerous, so I ran by everything until I retrieved Cortana's message. The first time I beat the mission, I had 20 Flood kills, which made no sense. I couldn't wrap my head around it, so I played the mission again. And this time, I left the Arbiter behind. I knew if I wanted to survive, I would have to run on my own instincts, so I swam through an ocean of Flood, and in 6 minutes, I beat the mission. The Flood don't come into this level until the later half of the mission, so I'm only gonna talk about that part. When they came into the facility in the asteroid type of thing, I ignored them all and rode the elevator down. Once I was on the ground floor, I left the facility as fast as I could to avoid accidentally killing anything. The whole section between here and the moment we team up with the Flood just has Covenant and some Scarabs, so I killed them all, and then we have to stop Truth from firing the rings. I avoided shooting and left it up to the Flood to kill the brutes because I didn't want to kill any Flood forms due to friendly fire. It took a long time, but eventually they did it. The Prophet of Truth tells the Arbiter that he has an itch on his back, but he can't reach it, so the Arbiter helps him out. After the Flood becomes our enemy again, I do some Mario-style parkour and drop into a hole. Cortana was a very easy level, considering that the only enemies in the level are Flood. In Halo 2, I distinctly remember that the Prophet of Truth was saying that this city will not fall and it won't become another one of their wretched hives. There wasn't much truth in that statement. I came into this level expecting a hard time, but I only ever died a handful of times. And I mostly died at the reactor part, and that was because of lame gravity. After running from the Flood for about 10 minutes, I finally got my artificial girlfriend back, and we blew the reactors with grenades. I grabbed an invisibility power-up earlier to help me with my escape. I was surprised that I never got lost in this mission once, because it is pretty damn confusing. My bro Arby came to support me, and we flew the hell out of there. To start off, the Master Chief can't find a parking spot, so he makes one. The Arbiter was my lifeline in this mission because he will take care of the Flood that needs to be dealt with. I tried running by everything at first, but I would never make it to the structure without being totally annihilated. To my surprise, the Flood don't spawn infinitely here. So after watching Arby become a one-man army, we made it to Johnson. Johnson was reducing all the Flood to atoms from the cliffside. He was a pillar of hope in our journey. Once we reach the top of the structure, we have to wait for Sarge and Arby to kill all the Flood forms. Once again, I went into a desperate search for a safe place to cower, and then I noticed the door frame stuck out a bit. It wasn't by much, but it looked like I could stand up there. I tested my theory, and it turns out I was right. Then I noticed another piece of the structure that looked climbable, and I made my way up to Sergeant to cheer him on. While I was waiting for the two of them to kill everything, my short attention span got the better of me, and I pushed Johnson off the cliff. I would come to regret it because now I had to push him all the way to the door because he wouldn't move on his own, and I couldn't proceed without him. After smashing his head in and losing an alarming amount of blood, I finally beat him all the way to the door. I felt like a monster. Friends don't smash friends' faces in. And I also did some foreshadowing. We go in and 343 kills Sarge for trying to destroy the ring. But he still has some fight left in him.
Hasta la vista, baby.
I destroy Guilty Spark and I shed some tears for my fallen comrade. We run past all the Flood forms and hop in the Warthog. I was stuck on this part for the longest time. When Arby kills Flood forms in the Warthog, it counts towards my kill count. I tried going on foot, but that didn't work. I tried killing him and leaving him behind, but that also didn't work. I kept trying to get by with the hopes that he wouldn't kill anything, but it was way too hard. So then I thought I could push him off the map, and that's when I saw a mongoose. I never knew about it, and I was super relieved because unless you tell Arby to get off the Warthog, he stays in it for the entire run. Goodbye, Arbiter. Thanks for sticking by me until the end. And then I drove away. Luckily in Halo 3, when you drive over infection forms, they don't die. They just act as speed bumps. Dodging the Flood forms were easy enough. I just had to drive carefully and the Sentinels would keep their attention. So after some near misses and a couple of accidents, I was near the end. Also, it was a good idea to grab invincibility because Sentinels are unforgiving. When they shoot you with their lasers, it pushes and flips your mongoose, and they decimate your health. So especially on Legendary, you should always grab the invincibility power up. I somehow made it into the Dawn's hangar and beat the level. So, you can actually beat Halo 1, 2, and 3 without killing any flood forms. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one.